My mother just, it felt like just about every day, she would beat me, degrade me, and humiliate me in some way. And one night, I must have been scared, and I went into my parents' room for comfort, and my mother brought me back to my bed. She found creative ways to torment me.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Robert Bleck. He is the creator and founder of Source Completion Therapy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robert.
And thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be with you and the audience.
Absolutely. So, something that really stuck out to me about you is that you have created a foundation on recovering from abuse and trauma, and you call it Source Completion Therapy. So, can you walk us through a little bit of your journey on what led you to this?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure to do so. Well, the start of my life was difficult and painful for me. Mother, who was abused herself as a child, was filled with anxiety, anger, and rage, and a great deal of that came out on me starting when I was about 3 years old. My mother just, it felt like just about every day, she would beat me, degrade me, and humiliate me in some way. Now, some of the specifics, I could give you some of the specifics if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, the beatings, she would use her fists sometimes, and sometimes she would use her open hands, hitting me in the face or all over my body. And she would also look for other objects, whether that was near her, a shoe or a cooking wooden spoon, and the belt. She liked to, particularly hitting me with the belt because the buckle hurt. So that was painful for me and hurtful. She also found creative ways to torment me. When I was about 3 years old, I know it was about three because my sister wasn't born yet. I'm 4 years older than my sister. And one night I must have been scared, and I went into my parents' room for comfort, and my mother brought me back to my bed and tied me to the bed. She didn't like to be inconvenienced. So the ropes went around the bed and over my chest. She wrapped that around many times. So that was terrifying. I was frightened. I was confused. I didn't know what to think at that point. So I screamed enough because I remember screaming. I guess they untied me eventually, but it was really very, very painful emotionally. So how did some of that behavior affect me when I was young? Um, I had nightmares just about every night, recurring nightmares. The monsters were coming after me to cook me and eat me. So to a 3, 4, 5, 6 year old, that was really again terrifying, horrifying. I bit my nails. I was terrified of the dark. I had to always sleep with the light on, probably until I was a teenager. So that was some of the ways that I was affected. I got out of it about 9 years old. What happened was I began to feel very compassionate, intensely so, for others who were abused or suffered in some way, whether it was an injustice I saw or whether it was poverty, sickness. It greatly disturbed me to hear that or watch it, whether it was something I saw on TV. In fact, I saw I was homesick one day from school, and this was nine, and I remember watching the original movie of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, and I remember just sobbing. It centers around the misery of the French masses of people in the 1800s, but centers around two characters: one who stole a piece of bread to feed his family, and the other one who chases him. He's a policeman, hounds him throughout his life. And I was just sobbing. I was 9 years old. And I was sobbing. I felt that pain so intensely. So I knew the foundation was kind of set, what I wanted to do with my life, that I wanted to help humanity in some way. I just wasn't totally clear at nine. So what I had to do though is I had to survive my mother, and I had to get out of the house. So at about 14, I became an athlete. I started to play sports, and I also nature helped me find some peace. So at around 14, my mother again tried to come to hit me. And I just held out my palm and I said, "You can't do that anymore." I'm strong now. I'm playing sports. I'm an athlete, and I'm going to defend myself. So she looked right in my eyes, turned around, and walked away. That was the last time she hit me. So then I decided I knew I was getting peace from the athletics and I was getting peace from nature. I mean, I would go outside, wake up early in the morning to watch the sunrise, and I thought the birds were singing to me. So that was peaceful. But obviously, I knew that I still had all these painful feelings inside of me that needed to be worked on. But I had to get out of the house first. So I decided I wanted to go to college. I worked many jobs because my parents didn't have much money. I worked as an ice cream scooper. I worked in a cleaning store. I was a lifeguard and a swim instructor. I worked at hotels as a bellhop, a waiter, a busboy. So I did a lot of money to save. I did that to save money so I'd have for college. I was fortunate to get a academic scholarship for full tuition. So I went to school, college. That was up in Albany, New York, and wasn't sure if I wanted to do psychology or medicine as a doctor to help humanity. Medicine didn't fit. I took the med courses, and the psychology fit perfectly. So I went on to get a degree in psychology, my bachelor's, and then I went in for my PhD. And I knew still, I had to work on myself, but I wasn't quite ready to continue that. In the PhD program, I had to go to therapy myself as part of the program, and I also went privately. But what I saw was happening in all the theories that I was trained for and I worked with, they didn't go deep enough as far as I was concerned. Okay. I it was short, and I still had those feelings stuck inside. Now, what happens when a child is abused and beaten? All kinds of feelings are created inside a young child, which they were in me. Against unimportant. A lot of people feel worthless. They feel inadequate. They feel defective, and they feel that there's something wrong with them. Empty and betrayed, and anger and rage. I had a lot of those. What I was fortunate, I didn't feel that it was my fault, as a lot of the people I work with do. I don't know where that came from, but I felt it was my mother's fault. I had to go to school and just get out of the house, which I did. Then when I finished the PhD, I worked in schools, I worked in clinics, and then I got a job as a professor at a university, training graduate students to be counselors and therapists. So what was happening, and at that point, people were coming up to me. I was getting referrals if I would see them because they were abused as a child, as children. So I said, let's try that. In my practice, private practice. And I was okay. Thought it was okay because I kept getting more referrals, but I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied that it was permanent enough for the healing that I wanted from the people I worked with. And it wasn't satisfying for me either. So I found out what worked, what didn't work, what I thought was best, and what would be permanent long term change for the people I worked with. And I created the three phases. The first one is awareness. Second one is relive and re-experience, and the third one is completion. Now, would you like to know more depth of that, what they are? Or do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your side of the story of what it was like growing up and how you have evolved because I think a lot of times it it's hard to talk about these things. It's hard to communicate and it's hard to process because we don't want to believe on what the reality of what the situations were. So I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. But I do have a
Uh,
question.
sure.
I feel like when we're overcoming trauma to some certain extent, there always has to be like a forgiveness piece. How did you cope with forgiveness, not only for yourself, but for your mother as well?
Okay, that's a question I always get asked, and it's a question I love to answer.
Absolutely.
Okay, my therapy is my focus is on the person healing in front of me, and my focus is me. So my three phases focus on just getting out all those feelings that the person has inside. Because what happens, as I explained, a child has to stuff those feelings, repress them, suppress them to survive when they're very young. what happens is they fester and they turn into like an emotional toxic brew. That'll come out always if they're not being dealt with in what I call diversions. They'll come on in phobias, anxiety disorders, obsessions, compulsions. They'll come out in person numbing themselves, come out in inappropriate rage, like road rage. It come out in eating disorders. These are symptoms that I work with for all the people that I deal with, and that's because they were hurt and abused and didn't want to feel the feelings. Okay, so my therapy gets them to feel the feelings, release the feelings to the source. That's the third phase. Who hurt them, and they go back to the source and tell the source how they were hurt and what they felt. So that's the most important ingredient in my therapy is releasing those feelings. When feelings are released, it's up to the person to forgive or not. The way I look at it, they're open, so they might forgive, and some do. Um, some don't want to forgive yet; they're not ready to do it, and that's fine as well. When they're ready, if they want to, they do it, and but they have to be healed from the inside first to be open. Because if they just mouth the words, if I tell them to forgive, they could be hollow because they're still left with all those feelings. So let's say they forgive their mother or father, but the feelings and the stuff and the symptoms are still going to come out on somebody else. So I wanted all the feelings to get out. They could forgive if they want, and that those diversions I call they evaporate when the three phases are complete. They go away, and the symptoms are clear. And if people grow on, I get letters and emails from people all over the world that I've saved their lives, and they can go on to live productive and fruitful lives. Some of them came in, they couldn't even one person came in. It was a woman in her 30s. She was just beaten and raped by her father consistently, tied to a radiator. She couldn't, and she was raped in the shower too. So when she came to me, she wasn't taking showers. She couldn't take a shower because that's where she was raped. She couldn't work. She couldn't have any relationships. So what happened is at the end of the therapy with me, when she was self complete, she says she had a relationship. She started a relationship. She went back to school for social work, and she's a productive worker and a productive member of society, and has a family of her own now. So those are rewards for me. So I'm just continually happy to do it, and I will continue it, as long as I can doing that.
Yeah, it's so amazing because how we can take our challenges and the struggles that we faced in the past and really use them to help other people. I think it's really incredible that even at such a young age, you didn't know what you were going to do with your life. You didn't understand why you were going through what you were going through, but you knew that you were going to take that and use it to help other people. And now you have the opportunity to help other people and people all around the world in that. So, what was the journey like? Did you start the source completion therapy, the process after college, or where did that start? Did it start during your studies?
Yeah, it started when it basically more in my PhD program because I was being trained in therapies. So, and I went to therapy. So I didn't like what I was in. Again, some of the therapies touched on one of the phases, maybe awareness. I mean, mindfulness. You've heard of that. That talks about awareness, but it wasn't complete enough for me. I needed
Mm.
more, and so did the people I work with. Uh, some maybe dealt with going back in time, but it still wasn't aware enough. And then the third phase, not many people deal with that because it's really difficult to confront the person who's hurt you. So
Mm.
I combined all those three, and that was what was successful for me. I can go into the what happens in each of the phases if you'd like.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, so the first phase is awareness, which I mentioned to you. It's can be a cognitive point. I want to know how the person was hurt, who hurt them, and what happened. So again, a lot of people are repressing that. So I have to rely on a couple other things like body language. I rely on helping them interpret dreams, and I know the right open questions to ask them in that phase. So I'll give you an example in a dream interpretation. I use that, and again, body language. So this person had a dream. They visualized themselves outside a castle, and all throughout the castle, the openings, the windows, they weren't windows at the time, but openings were weapons of destruction, guns and spears and grenade launchers, and whatever you could, machine guns, bow and arrows, whatever you could think of. And then there was a moat with alligators. And she asked me, "What do you think of that?" So I said, "Well, the way I like people to interpret dreams, there are a number of ways. I like to interpret each person or thing in the dream is a part of yourself." So she said, "Oh, that's interesting." So I said, "So what part of yourself was the castle?" She thought for a second. And she says, "That's the part of me that continually protects myself, doesn't want anyone to come near me. I'm always cautious. I'm always mistrustful. But it's hurting me now because I'm lonely and I'm empty. And I'm doing that because my father hurt me 25 years ago. And he molested me." And then we start. So then we start getting into more. But that's an example, just a dream and interpreting a dream using a person or thing as a part of themselves. And the other is body awareness and body language. Started with one woman. Came to me. She was referred to me. She had a really big bad rash. She was always getting a bad rash throughout her whole body, and they treated her with salves and medicine, and she would always get the rash back, and it was really times painful for her. And and I looked at the rash and I said, "Well, let's do something a little different. Let's look under the skin for what the skin might be saying." So she said, "Well, no one asked me that. No doctor asked me that question." So she thought for a second and she says, when I think about it, that's the poison that I feel inside from when my grandfather molested me when I was on his lap. I just asked her an open question, what's the skin saying? And then she went forward and then, you know, so the process takes a little time. Awareness, it depends how deep the feelings are buried, but I go for the body language, dream interpretation, and open questions. So in the next phase, when they have the awareness of who hurt them and how it was, I have them go back in time using relaxation techniques, visualization, self hypnosis, and hypnosis. I'll help them do it in my office or on virtually until they get practice at it, and then they can do it on their own. They go back in time, relax to the places and events that caused them the pain. So who hurt them, what happened, and I have them be aware of the sights, the sounds, smells, the feelings, everything, what you see and what you're feeling. And that's gradual. If they're not comfortable, we do it a little bit at a time. It depends on them. What that does, it brings up all the feelings to the surface. So wherever all the feelings are repressed, they're still there and still inside, and brings up the surface. Okay. So they know when they're feeling it. But again, that wasn't enough. Those two phases weren't enough. So the third phase, I have them go to the person or persons who have hurt them and tell them how they were hurt and what they felt about it. And that's very difficult for people because it's scary. All along, they had wanted that person's love, and they were scared to do anything not to get it. So if they have any kind of relationship with that now, they don't want to ruin it. Um, Eventually, they do go, or they write letters and they don't have to send it. That's how we started. Or if the person's dead, a lot of people ask me that question: What do we do? What do they do if the person's dead? Well, I have them just go to the grave. Or a lot of people, what they do with me now is because I'm virtually seeing a lot of people from different countries. I just have them close their eyes, go back, and they're comfortable with it, and just experience it and talk to the people who hurt you. Visualize those people: your mother, your father, your uncle, grandfather, siblings. So they'll talk to the people. Oh well, we're in session, and they just visualize the people. So again, that's productive for them. They feel good about it. Now the process, the length of time that the process takes, it's not simple. It's not quick. It's not easy. It's not behavioral. It's not. I'm not working on one system. I'm working on what causes the symptoms. So it depends on how deep the person buried the feelings, how committed they are to the process, and how courageous they are to confront the source. So that's what it depends on. So I had an actor come to me one time. He was having issues and stuff, and he came to me the first time. He looked at his watch. He says, "Well, how long is this going to take?" I said, "Well, we're not going to be finished by lunchtime. You know, this is a process that takes time, and it depends on you and your commitment and courage." And he's there. He's been with me for years. So, and he's again, he's grown. His acting is better, and he's leading a productive life. So those are the three phases, simply explained. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I really love that because that's exactly like what I started to really work on is learning how to nourish yourself from the inside out. Like it's literally the name of this
Yeah.
podcast because I remember when I was in my early 20s, I was like maybe 19, 20 years old, and all I cared about was the outside on how I looked and how I felt and how I dressed. But what I didn't realize is that it meant nothing if I kept neglecting the inside. And I was just running myself in circles and circles until I ran myself to the ground of because I was not nurturing the inside. I wasn't acknowledging my feelings. I wasn't being kind to myself. I was always judging myself. And what I realized later on after I hit rock bottom was that it all starts on the inside. But for example, you and I know that it's hard for somebody to communicate their emotions immediately or right off the bat. So how would you take on a situation for somebody who is so numb in their feelings and it takes a while for them to feel them and to really get through that?
Right. Well, I'm just patient. If they come to me, they know something's wrong. But they have one of those symptoms of obsession, a phobia, all of the addictions. They have addictions to anything, gambling, food, alcohol, drugs. So they know, and that's affecting their life. So they come to me for some reason. They're wanting help, and I explain to them that it's all of these symptoms that you're talking about are coming from feelings that you held inside. So we have to get the feelings out, and they accept that. And one time it took a person. I mean, it just takes time getting to trust me, getting to feel comfortable enough to have these memories come up. And the people that I do work with, again, they read my book and they know that it's not simple, and it's going to take a bit of time. I had one person. She was a woman. She came to me about. She was in her late 30s. She knew things were wrong. She was having troubles with marriage and relationships and with her children, and wasn't sleeping good. So eventually, with the open questions, with me just being patient with her, I don't rush any of this. They're not rushed. She began having flashbacks in her head of a bed, her in the bed, and her father right at the end of the bed, like a flash, like a camera picture, a strobe light. And she got scared. She didn't know what that was. And I said, well, it's probably something coming up from your past, things that you hid. That eventually she got the whole picture and what he did to her since she was about 4. He started molesting her. So and then she wrote letters to him. She spoke to him, and eventually she married the right person and went on to have a nice life. I know about her still today for this day. So it's my patience, my 3 phase therapy, and my commitment to doing the work with the person. So and that usually works.
Yeah, that's so interesting because something that I've also been learning on this journey is that we typically make decisions based on the unhealed parts of us. Like, for example, I had a really bad ex that I was in a relationship with. And I was talking with somebody about it, and he was like, "Well, does he remind you of your mom or your dad?" And I was like, "No, like I'm trying to tell you about the relationship." And the person that I was having a conversation with, he kept saying, "Well, does he remind you of your mom or your dad?" And I'm a firm believer that if we don't heal that childhood trauma, it's going to follow us into future relationships or future endeavors. What's your take on that?
Exactly. Well, it's in my book. What that's called is transference or projection. So if you if someone reminds you of a parent and you're not even aware of it, you think they're the cause of it, the person in the present, and it's not. For example, I this is a simple example, the only one, the one coming to me right now. I dealt with a couple that came to me and they were having difficulties, and um, what the difficulty was, they just got married, and they were having breakfast, and they sat down to breakfast, and the husband grabbed the paper to read it. It was Sunday, and he wanted to read the paper as he had the breakfast, and the woman got incensed, rageful, to where she, how could you do this to me? How could you ignore me? How could you be so uncaring? You're reading the paper. I'm nothing to you. So I said, well, when they came to me, I said, well, where do you think that intense anger comes from? Steve is just reading the paper. So she thought about it, and she says, that's my father. He was never around. He never cared. He never listened to me. And then I said, well, that's called transference, and that's a powerful diversion. And we got to work on your father and you. So she started talking to her father, first in my office, in her mind, and then eventually she talked to him. So that's the way I do it, and that's transference. That is that's one of the most powerful diversions there is, because people swear that it's the other person who was causing the thing, not their childhood. So I have to break through that. It takes a little time to do that.
For example, if somebody comes, like, for example, if somebody comes to you and they say, I don't have trauma, but I don't understand why I'm acting like this or why I'm facing the same situation. How do you take that situation when someone repeatedly says, I don't
Well,
have trauma?
that's difficult. Well, like I say, well, where do you I would ask the open questions. Well, where do you think these symptoms come from? If it's road rage, someone comes in, no, they're just the people on the road. And I've had people say this, no, that's just this guy cut me off. He cut me off. I say, well, what are the feelings that come up for you? So he said, well, what comes up for me is they're not respecting me, and they're ignoring me. So I said, well, again, let's go back a little bit in time. Who do you think did that to you, and who do you think is the reasons for this intensity? And he listened to me, and he said, well, that was my father. He had no respect for me. He abandoned the family. He left. He wouldn't listen to me. He didn't care at all what I said or what I did or what I thought. So I have to probe. I have to probe these things if they come. If they're so stuck, that's my theory wouldn't be for them. If they stay stuck for months and they just want to work on the symptom, then it's not going to work. They're going to want behavioral therapy. Someone to work on just the symptoms. I do behavioral stuff involved with this, but it's as part of the three phases. For instance, in the reliving part, when the person goes back and they relive what happened to them, I'll say some of them. I had an artist that was doing this work, and I said, "Well, you've gone back in time. Just use your art. Use your art to express on the easel what you're feeling." So she took, it was a big canvas. I'm not an artist, but she was. So it's a big canvas. I guess it was on an easel, and she put a tiny dot. She took a pen, put a tiny dot in the middle of the paper, the white paper. I says, well, tell me about that. So she says, well, that's how I feel: insignificant, unimportant, worthless, and unheard. So that's a behavioral technique where I'm having them do the art. So I've worked with musicians who I say, well, you've gone back in time. Let's write a song to your mother, and they write a song, and so that's a behavioral type of thing, but it's incorporated into that phase. It's not on its own doing something behavioral, because if you're working with someone stopping smoking, they're gonna stop smoking, but they might turn to eating, they might turn to obsession with exercise, they might turn to some other obsession with another person. It could be so many things. So you're not really getting at the source and get those feelings out. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's so important to find the source of where that's coming from. I really like that example that you mentioned about the road rage because I've actually never thought about it that way. Of thinking, well, why do you have road rage? Well, that person didn't respect me. Well, who didn't respect you in your past or in your early years that makes you like that?
Right.
Because I think road rage is such a big one, but at the same time, that could be a common symptom of us not being respected when we were kids or treated the way that we would like to. So that's a great example.
Thank you. Yes, and it's a common one. I mean, I read in the papers every day. People get they kill each other over a parking spot. Uh, I read about it, and I said, well, that intensity. See, intensity is a key for me when I hear a person intense with anger, and it's over something mild. I had a woman I dealt with. First time I saw her, I was just doing an intake. I was getting her dressed, and she was shaking her leg. Her legs across, just her foot, I guess, like. And I know about shaking feet because when I was a young boy, I was shaking also with my anxiety. So I knew that, and I said to her, I stopped taking the address. I said, just I see your legs, going up and down. What is your foot saying now, right now? That's the way I ask a body language question. So she says, well, it wants to kick you, and it wants to kick you in the head, it kick you in the groin, kick you wherever I can kick you. So now I know that intensity can't be me. I just met her, and all I did is ask for her address. So I said, okay, how come you want to kick me? And then she says, because you're a man. And I said, what about that? She says, well, all you men do is use me, use women, take advantage of us, don't care about our feelings, dismiss us, and so you're no good. I want to kick you. So I said, all right, so who really hurt you when you were young? Who hurt you? Who did that? And then she started to go into who hurt her. It was his cousins, nephews, uh, and it was, I think her father was in there too. And then she just starts going, and she stayed with me until she completed the process.
It's just like such like a throwback for me because I remember being in a similar situation like that as well, you know. You would see people just shaking their leg, but like I guess I never really thought about why or where that root is coming from because I remember my ex-husband would always be shaking his leg all the time. It would be so fast and so rapid.
Yeah, that's it.
And I would ask him why, and he would always say something mean towards me. He would always say like, "Because you're X, Y, and Z," or "You're making me mad." It's always you. And it didn't really occur to me until now. It's like like for example, it's like I've learned that when people are mean to you, it's not you, it's a reflection of how they feel about themselves or something that's coming up for them. And
Yeah.
that was like a hard lesson that I had to learn as well.
And you learned it. And I hope you're on a good course for your life now, based on what you tell me. I hope that you're recovering and healing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. It's like we're all here for one another. Like, honestly, like, I really just started this podcast is to give people the education and the tools that I once needed during really challenging times. And I feel so blessed that you and I get to sit here and have this open-ended conversation together and share it with others because that's the point is creating a community and letting people know that they're not alone. And I love that you also wrote a book about your process and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure, the book goes into the three phases, but it goes into it in a different way, or way I wrote it. It goes into the stories of some of the people that I talked about here, um,
Mm.
and teaching them after the story and before the story. I'm explaining things, but the stories are engaging. You're reading like a novel of these people's lives, and through that, I explain the process and the three phases. So it's all little story snippets, little pieces of that, and the book is called "Give Back the Pain."
Wow. Give back the pain. That's so powerful. Wow. One more question for you before we wrap things up. And what does it mean for you to be nourished inside out?
It means that my feelings, any things I stored, are released healthy in a healthy way, that I could be open to all of life, all of life's magic, all of the wonders that are there. I could watch the stars all night, and I could hear the birds all in the morning sing, and I take that into my heart. And it means that to me, to be open to the magic and wonder that life has to offer.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you for being here and sharing all your education and your knowledge with us. But can you please tell us where can people support you and stay in touch with you?
Sure, they can go to my website. It's Robert Bleck, BLECK.com. Nice and simple. And the information is there. My phone number, my office phone number, and my email. It's all there. They can contact me, website, and then the email or phone. Anyway,
Is your book available on your website as well?
yeah, the book is. And in fact, you can
Okay,
see it. You see a picture of it, and it opens up, and it gives you a little taste of it on my website.
perfect.
Yes, it's there. And in Amazon, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. A lot of people seem to get it from Amazon, so it's right there. There's a Kindle they could read, or the softcover book, so it's all there. And I'm always glad to talk to anybody who reaches out to me.
Amazing. I'll have all of that linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch. Thank you for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you. I enjoyed it mostly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into Nourished Inside Out today. If you're ready to take these conversations deeper, come join me inside the Self Love Circle, our private community to heal, grow, and thrive together. You'll find a link in the show notes below, and I can't wait to see you there.